And welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of us painting the Nighthaunt Age of Sigmar Black Coach. Today what we're going to do is paint all the ethereal parts. And there's quite a bit of them, obviously. So what I did do is I went ahead and base coated everything using what is this? Adriatic Blue from scale 75. It's quite bright, as you can see, and it will remain quite bright until we go through it and we go over it. I was thinking about this earlier, and what I'm going to end up doing is, after all the primary colors are done, such as the blue, the brown, and the red, is I'm going to go through the entire model and darken it down a little bit, because a couple of you have pointed out that it is a little too bright, and I agree with you. It is a little too bright for what it's supposed to be. But let's work on the blue in today's episode. So first thing we're going to do is go in there with some Darkening Nightshade, about a 50-50 mix of Darkening Nightshade and water. And we're going to go over the entire blue. Now, we're not going to smother it, but we're going to apply a fairly heavy coat of this over the model to kind of give us some nice shades in the recesses. Hold on one second, guys, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up the paint. To give us some nice shading in the recesses, obviously. So what I'm going to do is, hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah, you can. And my brush is loaded, but I'm obviously going to move this around everywhere. So I'm not trying to get this to pool anywhere. I'm just trying to get coverage, even coverage, basically, just like this. These Games Workshop inks, or whatever the hell these are, washes, or whatever Games Workshop calls these nowadays, they tend to dry very heavily, very dark, so you don't need as much of it as you may think you do for the coverage, or for the effect that you're going for. I mean, obviously we're not going for anything too heavy, as I said, just some decent shading in the crevices, and just to give us a nice base to work off of. So most of this is going to get covered back over with our base color afterwards, but it's going for a nice base to work off of. So I'm going to continue this and I'll come back when it's done. And welcome back, everybody. This is what we're looking at as far as the blue glaze on here. So what we're going to do now is take some more Adriatic Blue, which I actually diluted quite a bit more than usual. This is about 50% water, 50% color, plus a drop of glaze medium on here. And now we're just going to basically start filling in most of the model. Again, we're going to cover up most of this wash, just kind of leaving it in the darkest recesses. I haven't decided on how bright I want to take these yet, but I think they're going to be fairly bright, and that'll give us more options to going back in with some washes later on, with some ink washes and glazes later on, and really darkening it up and really giving it a nice thematic look to it. But I haven't actually figured out that part yet. I will as we go along here. So this is going to take me a while because there's a lot of this blue. So I'm going to fill all this stuff in again as much as possible here. I'm going to leave like the darkest areas in here with the and down here, but yeah, let me fill all this stuff in and then I'll come back and we'll continue highlighting. Alrighty, guys. That only took about 3 hours. Holy moly, I'm a little tired. It's a bit of a sloppy film, but I achieved what I wanted to with this, so I'm already starting to see, hopefully you guys are too, I'm already starting to see a nice result with this. So it's starting to look much, I'm trying to set my light up so you guys don't get too much glare on here. I do have to get a new light. As I said, once I'm set up permanently, I'll get my old setup going again, but until then, hopefully it's not too bad. Anyways, it is starting to look much better. There we go. Starting to see the the shading obviously a little better, so we're getting there. Now what we're going to do is going to take even longer, so there's my Adriatic blue. To that I am going to start adding pure white. Now, very minimally. So that's the first, it's going to be the first highlight. Actually going to add another drop of Adriatic blue in there just for good measure. So I'm planning on probably going at least 20 or 30 highlights on this. So what I'm going to do, for the sake of time, instead of coming back for every single one, I'm going to come back for every 5 or 6 or so. And let you guys know, this is after X amount of highlights and so on and so forth. Also, what I see, you can barely tell the difference now, and that's what I'm going for. Also, what I'm going to do is, my normal way of painting would be, to start highlighting right from the top and then work my way down. But no, I'm going to start this about halfway on wherever I'm highlighting. I'm going to make this as stark as possible and hopefully achieve that ethereal look that way. That's what I'm going for. That's the purpose of this. So hopefully that works out, obviously. And I already figured how we're going to darken this down afterwards as well. But that obviously we won't talk about until the very end, or until we get further along with this. After I'm done with the blue, which is this episode obviously, we're going to work on the non-metallic metals. And then we're going to work on the casket of the vampire, and after that, before we finish off some of the other details, we're gonna start putting this thing together, at least for the most part, so it's not as awkward to hold as it has been for me painting this. And so anyways, hopefully you guys can see this. As I said, I'm starting the highlights about halfway up the portion that I'm painting. Hopefully this results in the ethereal look we're going for. God, this brush is gonna be toast after we're done with this model. So usually I use my larger brushes to get some of these larger details done and base coating and stuff. I've been using this brush for everything, only because everything else is still packed away for me. So yeah, I've been using this brush for everything. So anyhow, let me continue doing this, and I'll come back to you guys after a few of these highlights are done. And welcome back, everybody. Just a quick look at our progress so far. Coming along. I mean, this is about, I gotta fix this light. I got a better, different light, or I gotta get a different light set up rather, so you guys can see this better. But anyhow, this is after about 5 coats, or 5 highlights rather, 5 different highlights. It's starting to get there, but obviously this is only about halfway there, maybe even a quarter of the way there. So what I'm going to continue now is I just wanted to, basically I'm going to keep adding white to the Adriatic blue mix. And then just kind of basically going over just some of the highest areas on here. Make these highlights, I'm going to try and make these highlights as stark as possible. The brighter the highlights, obviously, the more ethereal these will look, at least in theory. I've never tried painting ethereal models using this method, so I'm not actually sure how it's going to turn out. Hopefully it turns out well, but we'll see. So anyways, I'm going to continue on doing this, and I'll come back to you guys for the last couple of highlights, just so you can actually be there with the when we put the finishing touches on these. But until then, I'm going to continue doing this. This is very, very time consuming. One pass or one pass of highlights takes me probably about an hour and a half or so. So I've been doing this over the last couple of days. But yeah, I'm going to continue doing this, and I'll come back when it's done, or as I said, I'll come back when I'm close to being done with the last couple of highlights left on here, so that you guys can witness those at least. And welcome back, everybody. We are about halfway through of getting the blue done. So some of you are going, what the hell are you talking about? You've been going back and forth on this for the last, I don't know, the video's probably about half an hour long now at this point. But it's actually been close to 2 weeks now that I've been working on and off, obviously. I don't want to burn myself out too quickly on this, so I am taking some days off between here, and there's so much of it that it's taken longer than I would hope, obviously, or that I would have wanted. Not 100% thrilled with it yet, especially this section here, only because there's so much of it. I think at some point I might decide to break it up and actually paint in the bone areas, maybe, or break it up somehow. And obviously, if you guys can see, it's very rough at this point. There's a lot of blending that's still going to go into this, and this is, as I said, about halfway only at this point, so I've still got a ways to go, a long ways to go. What we're going to do now is start bringing in some contrast, meaning darken it up before we continue pushing the highlights more. Don't look at the gray here. I was using a gray on something else earlier, but these are basically my steps of what I was using. So this was the base color with white being added in more so here, and then this is about 50% base color, which is what, Adriatic blue, and 50% white. What we're going to do now is shake this paint very vigorously before I show it to you guys. One sec, let me make sure this is shaken up well. Alright, so I'm going to take some navy blue. Ooh, sorry, shaking the camera here. Let's take some navy blue. Okay. Like so. And we're going to take some glaze medium. I think I'm running low on this glaze medium. I might have to get another bottle here sooner than later. Like so. So this is about 1 part paint to 2 parts glaze medium. This is going to be a very, very, very thin wash, and this is going to take us a very, very long time to do, and then mix some water in, obviously. But the results are quite impressive if we take our time doing this, which I completely intend on doing. So basically, just so before I take this off the table and bring a figure on over here, just so you guys see what I'm doing. There's going to be another black glaze that goes onto this afterwards too, but that's not for a while. This is going to take me a very long time to do, so one step at a time. I actually thought about breaking this video up in 2 parts, but decided against it. I figured it'd be a little longer. It would take me a little longer to put out, but at the end of the day, you know, 1 video for the blue, and so it doesn't get confusing or anything like that. Anyhow, what the hell is I gonna do? Right, I was gonna show you guys how I apply this. So, before I take this off, okay, this is a big reason why I have this wet paper towel here. I take most of this off my brush before I go applying it anywhere. So when you go and apply it, you can barely see it. See that? So now let me take this off, and let's begin doing this on camera so you guys see what I'm doing here. So the reason I decided to do this is twofold. Number one, the colors are too bright for the black coach, and a lot of you guys have said that in the comments, which, by the way, I really appreciate. A lot of you guys commenting on the previous parts on this, in the previous episodes, a lot of you guys engaging, and I really appreciate that, because it definitely motivates me to keep doing this, you know, semi-regularly, at least put out content as regularly as I can. But yeah, so number one, it's too bright. Number two, it's a little rough around the edges, so this kind of hopefully will bring all that together a little bit, because at some point the layers that I was putting on, and you can't really tell as much on this guy, but on the horses you'll be able to see, and actually I might pull those up just to show you guys. At some point the layers became chalky, and so it looks like crap now. So what I'm doing is, hopefully this is gonna kind of help blend it all together, number one, and again, number two, add some contrast and make it a tad bit darker than what we're at right now. I'm also contemplating adding some green or purple in here at some point, which is a possibility. We'll see how this comes out, and then we'll go from there. As far as how many times I'm going to do this, or how much of the wash I'm going to apply, or dropping everything, or how much of the glaze I'm going to apply, I'm kind of playing it by eye over here, going with whatever I think looks good, and that'll pretty much determine how heavy I go with this. And again, there is going to be black following up behind this, so I don't have to make it too heavy, only because there will be darker behind this anyways. The main idea here is to add some contrast in here, only because I think I either overdid or I underdid it with the contrast, I guess, while highlighting. And so it's just making it pop, and as I said, blending it in a little bit, because you can't tell on here. Actually, this looks pretty damn good as far as far as how smooth the transitions are, but I will show you guys the horses here in a second. And I know this is actually a much longer clip, but I did want you guys to see how I'm doing this. Now let me show you the horses real quick before I go and do this off camera. Hopefully you can see, I mean up here especially, how rough this looks. So yeah, so that's one of the reasons I'm doing this. And hopefully I don't drive myself crazy in the process, because this portion in particular is becoming quite problematic to me. It's too monotone at this point, so I'm gonna have to figure something out what to do with it, but I'll worry about that afterwards. Anyways, I'm gonna continue with my glaze here, and I'll come back to you guys when it's done before we do the black to show you what the blue looks like, and then I'll do the black. Alrighty guys. Hopefully you can see the difference here. It's getting there. It's starting to look closer to what I was hoping for than when we started, obviously, so it's certainly getting there. The shadows are starting to pop. It's starting to look a lot deeper, and it's that ethereal look is becoming a little bit more believable, I guess, for lack of a better word. Not quite there yet, so this is basically me glazing the blue, the navy blue. Now what we're going to do is a very, very, very light glaze of pure black on these to really darken it up in just select areas of the models. So hold on one second. Shake this up quite well, and then afterwards we'll go back to, I think what I'm going to end up doing is glazing the rest of the highlights on too, because I think that's going to be the only real way to keep it smooth, keep the transition smooth, because that's the biggest pain I've come across, especially in the horses, is just keeping on the transition smooth on there. Whoops, sorry, wrong paint. Let's put some white in that black. And so I think the only way to do that is going to be to glaze on more highlights, which I plan on doing next. And then hopefully we're going to be done. Now what I am going to need from you guys is let me know what to do about the horses. About the bones on the horses, actually. Do we leave them be? Or do we paint them a bone color, obviously? And I think I'm still gonna look for something to break up the monotony of all the blue as of right now. So I'm leaning towards painting the bone on the horses actual bleached bone color, or maybe even a non-bleached bone color. Just to kind of bring in a different look in there, but I haven't decided yet. So this is what I'm talking about as far as us doing the black, just very, very, very gently and very lightly. All this is, it's not really to it's not really for us to see the black, it's just to add that final dark, oops, sorry guys, it's just to add that final dark look on here. Just to add that final shadow on here so that we can really have that contrast popping. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the horses of the bone. Before we end this video, I'll show it to you in a little bit more detail. And next video, I'll do whatever you guys suggest, whether to leave it as is or whether to paint it. But yeah, this is basically what I'm doing here. And once again, I'm going to go over the entire model and I'll come back for more highlights. Alright folks, everything is starting to come together now, and it's starting to look not super smooth, but smooth enough to where I'm happy with it. So especially, as I said, I was struggling with the horses because just there's so much blue on these. So what I decided to do with the navy blue, kind of go heavy on the top sides here and kind of string it down and make it dissipate. It kind of gives it that, I guess it sells the ethereal look a little bit better on here, a little bit more. And I want to show you guys how I did it, because it's kind of just screwing around with it and it worked out fine. So I have my my glaze left on here, so I put some on my brush. Okay, yeah, hopefully you guys can see this. Put some on my brush. Let's do it on this guy. And then I just do a heavy application here. Quickly get some paint or some water on my brush, and then just kind of feather it out over where I want it to cover. And I did this about 10 times maybe on each horse, and it actually worked out quite nicely. So it basically gets darker, darker on the end here, and lighter as it fans out, which I was really happy with how that came out. So that being done, I gotta let this dry now. That being done, let me show you the ghosties here too, because I'm really happy with how these are starting to look. Starting to pop, which I'm happy. It's kind of does away with the monotone look on them. Kind of gives them some nice depth. So that's what we were looking for, just because there's so much of the blue. That being said, I'd still like you guys to tell me whether I should paint the bone on the horses or leave them as is, and before this video's over we'll actually go through, I'll actually show you the entire coach, where we stand right now, so you can decide, maybe have a better look at it and decide. So now what I'm going to do is the final highlight on the tips with pure white, but again, this is going to be another wash situation, because I don't really want to apply it too heavily, but I do want to have the room to play around with it to see how far I can get. So again, 1 drop of paint to 3 drops of wash, and my water's starting to turn blue. That's okay. Here's our paint. Let's go to town. Alright, so basically, again, this is going to be just the topmost edges on everything here. And again, I'm sure this is going to take me a while. Yeah, this is going to take me a while, but it's exactly what I'm looking for. So let me get going on this, and I'll come back to you guys to show you the final product afterwards. Alrighty. I am both fairly content, happy, and just relieved that I am, for the most part, done with this blue. I do say for the most part, because I might want to go back at some point and darken it up or change it, depending on your guys' comments. I'm still thinking it's a little too bright, but I don't hate it. I absolutely don't hate it. I'm actually happy with how it turned out, especially the amount of work that went into it. But I'm afraid it might still be a little too bright, so I might go back at some point and touch it up. But for the time being, I'm calling it done. So, a couple of things. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, my favorite part on it is still the drunk ghost. I think he came out the best as far as the shading on here, the highlighting, and everything else. I think he came out the best, definitely. Let me know what you guys think on the blue. Also, let me know what you think on the horses themselves. Should I do some of the bone areas to break up some of this monotony in here? thinking yes. But let me know what you guys think, and I will go from there. Other than that, next time we will be working on the non-metallic metal areas, or the metal areas doing a non-metallic, such as the sword, the chalice, the lanterns here, scythe, wheels, some of the metal details on the coach itself, and so on and so forth. So we'll be working on that next time, and the casket with the vampire in it as well, because I'd like to shut this, or I'd like to glue this top portion onto the coach itself, so I don't have to screw around with it and handle it every time I'm painting something on it, and risk chipping the paint. But so far, I gotta tell you, this is a huge model, obviously. Fairly happy with how it's coming out. I'm actually quite ecstatic to finish it, just to see what the end product looks like. I usually have an idea in my head of what I want something to look like before I start on it. This one I had not, so this one I just kind of went with it on the fly as I was painting it. So I'm just as curious as some of you might be as to how this is going to turn out, and I'm really appreciative of you guys, of your comments, of your feedback, of your support. Keep them coming, good or bad, absolutely keep them coming. I enjoy reading all of them. Yeah, really appreciate you guys just getting involved in this, and yeah, let me know about the horses for next episode, and then we'll go from there. But thank you for watching. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for subscribing. I've gained quite a few subscribers with this series, just in the last few weeks. So again, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And yeah, like, follow, dislike, subscribe, comment, whatever you guys want to do. Thank you very much, and until next time.